and welcome to Open Sessions. Today we're talking bindings, more specifically how to fasten your bindings to your board. So obviously there's lots of different bindings on the market. Today we're going to demonstrate with the North Flex LX. So this is North's higher end binding and it has various adjustments. So first we're just going to run through how the strap connects to the FOOTPAD. So keep in mind some bindings might come with the strap already fixed, and then some of your more higher end bindings you'll get just a little bit more adjustment. So with this particular one you don't have to unthread any parts, you just drop these little adjusters just in through the chassis and you're going to position them into place. There's numbers here and little indicators, and the manual will sort of tell you where you might want to set them for a start. I run with them in the widest settings, and that's going to lock my foot in the most. And then the other side, the positions basically just reflect the size of your foot. So I've got a US 9, 9.5, and so I run in the middle. That's a fairly average size foot. If you had a smaller foot, if you were somewhere, you know, US 8 or below, you might want to go into the forward setting, and that is just so you can make sure that your toes are getting over the tow bar. You're in that comfortable position. If you had a larger foot, we're talking, you know, probably bigger than a US 11 or something, you might want to think about bringing that back into number 3, the back setting, and that would be once again so your toes are over the tow bar. So you've bought new bindings, or maybe you've got a new board, or maybe you're just wanting to mix up your existing system. So most bindings on the market will have indicators showing you where the standard setting is. And the standard setting, as far as angle on the board, will normally be 15 degrees forward and negative 15 degrees back. That's a really good starting place for you to put your bindings onto your board. Most boards will have inserts on the boards, and you'll pretty much be able to just go for those middle inserts. If you're not sure where to put them, then I would start by going for the middle inserts. If you decide that you would rather have a wider stance, then obviously you've got room to move, and generally you would move both of them outwards, so you would keep it symmetric, so you've got the same amount of board in front of your front foot as you do on the rear, because remember you're going to be riding both directions. So some people prefer to only ride heel side one direction, that's their predominant direction, and then they'll find it easier to do a carve turn and come around toe side the other direction. So some people like this, it's more, you call it directional riding. So they might prefer to flatten off their back foot a bit more, not have that negative 15 degrees. Some people with knee injuries or bad knees, they prefer to have a little bit less angle on their rear foot. And then they might add a little bit more on their front foot, because you're always facing that way. You're either going heel side that way or toe side that way. So you can have a play around with that, and you'll generally feel what feels most comfortable for you. So bindings, they're not tight fitting like shoes. You have room to shuffle in them. So the angle that you set it up might not be the final angle that you ride. So I know Nick Jacobson, he likes to really twist his feet into his bindings. So he might set them up being a little bit less angle than what he actually rides. So just going back to the inserts in the board, this particular board has down the line inserts, so those are straight down the center line. So the advantage with this is that if you wear out your heel side of your board, which most people tend to ride on the most because you can hold the most power, then you have the ability to flip the board around and put your bindings on the other side, and they'll work just as well that way. So this is a feature that North has brought out in 2023. And so for the standard setting for these Flex LX bindings, if you had something that was version 1, so from 2020 to 22, then your standard setting would be the 1 indicator. So you'd put the screws in there. If you've got a board that is 2023, or you've got another manufacturer's board that has down the line inserts, then you would use the indicator 2, and that would be your standard 15, negative 15 degrees. So traditionally, inserts on the board would be offset from the center line to give you that negative 15, positive 15 for a start. But when they're set up like that, you don't have the ability to flip the board around. So these bindings are good because you can use them on a board which has either setup. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and set up these bindings on the board how I like to ride them. So I think the industry's generally settled on having PH3 screws. So a PH3 driver seems to be what most manufacturers use for doing up the screws. So I always have one of these in the back of the car. So I like to ride with my bindings just on the standard setting. So I like them symmetric, just 15 in the front, negative 15 on the rear. So these screws are M6x16s, and on North boards they're used for all of the accessories you fasten to a board. So they're the same ones for your fins, they're the same ones to attach your handle. So I'm going to line up on the middle inserts and just screw those down. So most manufacturers with their bindings would have made them so for all of the sizes of the boards, you're not getting any binding hanging over your heel side or your toe side when you're going into a carve turn, because that's just really annoying. It can catch or create drag, extra splashing. So you'll notice on this board, once I've done this up, you don't have any of the toe of the binding hanging over, or you don't have any of the heel. And on these bindings, they're kicked back, they have an angle inwards, and so even on our narrowest board, our smallest boards, you're still not going to have any overhang. So you have these other holes here. If you ever found, like, I know some people feel like they're not getting enough purchase on their toe side. All of your leg muscles are generally set up for you to be able to hold the most power when you're riding heel side. But when you flip the board around and you're going toe side, sometimes people find that they want to get more purchase. So if you're not, able to hold an edge really well on your toe side, you might consider moving your bindings a little bit further forward, as long as they're not hanging over the tip. So this is sort of more applicable to your light wind boards that are super wide. Sometimes you just can't get that force you need to. The other scenario might be, I've got some here, if you have smaller feet and you're struggling to get enough purchase on your heel side, then you might consider moving the whole binding back further towards your heel side, because that's predominantly what most people ride in. Generally, people don't ride for huge distances toe side. So that's shuffling the binding backwards and forwards like that. We've talked about the angle that you can set the bindings at, in and out. So you can go forward and back, and then obviously it's just your stance width. So that's moving the bindings out further. This is a lot of freestylers like to have their knees more bent, so when they land hard it's going to take the impact better. And then people who have got more of a carvier style or something, sometimes they would prefer having their bindings a bit closer together. Or if you've got shorter legs, then you would move your bindings on the inserts, keeping the same angle you've found that is nice, and the same distance from the heel side or the toe side edge. You would just move them one insert inbound. This is just the fit of your foot in the binding and the strap. So generally what I would do is loosen off the binding, loosen off the strap. Once I've got it all fastened to the board, I'd put my foot in and I'd place it where my big toe is just over the tow bar. So most bindings will have a tow bar, and so you're going to get your big toe over there. So that's the position that you like your foot on the foot pad. And then you're going to fasten up the binding, the straps, firmly. And so, what you're trying to do is keep your foot in there generally. There are people that are doing all these, mega loop board off moves and things, and sometimes they will set up their straps differently, but This is, you know, 5% of people. So most people just, once they put their foot in, they don't want it to come out. So in this case, once you got your foot in the right place, then I would tighten up these straps. Different manufacturers, some bindings just have one strap, some bindings have two straps. The difference with two straps is that you get a bit more control and articulation of the strap to suit the top ridge of your foot. So if you've got a binding with two straps, most people will want to put the straps as wide apart as possible, because that's just going to lock down the strap onto your foot. If you are one of these people that likes jumping big and doing board offs, then you might want to consider making these straps a little bit closer. And this is just going to mean that you're not quite so locked into your strap. You've got that ability to pull your foot out when you need to and slide it back in easily. But myself, I tend to just ride with them in the lock position out as wide as possible. So then you want to lock these down. This top flap just covers it over, so when the water tends to come off the front of your board, when it's pushing, it's just not going to peel this top flap open. I also press down the sides. Most straps will have, you know, these little extended bits of Velcro. It's really important to push them down once again, so the water that's spraying up isn't going to over time lift this flap up. All right, that's a wrap on bindings. So we've gone through a few different ways that you can adjust where you put your bindings on the board and how you fasten the strap to suit your riding style. If you've got a setup that we didn't mention, then please share it with us in the comments below, and we look forward to catching you in the next one.